ask, whose side are you on, Trump or Bruce Springsteen? Remember what Eve said. Bring
I think there's only one boss in America.
Irish singer-songwriter and U2 frontman Bono absolutely unloaded on and tore into President Donald Trump in an interview with Esquire today over the administration's decimation of foreign aid programs. Bono, who's been involved in social and political causes around the world for decades and frequently criticized Trump in the past, calling the moves unbelievable carnage and going on to criticize the administration further in much harsher terms. He has also been frequently critical of Donald Trump in the past. In the upcoming interview, he says Donald Trump stands to wreck progress on health and food security for the most vulnerable people in the world, but this is also nothing new. Back in 2020, Bono had this to say about Trump towards the end of his presidency.
Does Trump come to you as somebody who's a change agent? Because people are so unhappy about status quo? Or does he come to you as something else?
Look, America is like the best idea the world ever came up with. But Donald Trump is potentially the worst idea that ever happened to America. Potentially. Could destroy it. Because of what we're saying. Because America's not just a country. Ireland's a nice country. Great Britain's a great country. All the rest of it. It's not an idea. America is an idea, and that idea is bound up in justice and equality for all. Equality and justice for all, you know?
Making America strong.
What is I think he's hijacked the party. I think he's trying to hijack the idea of America, and I think it's bigger than all of us. I think this is really dangerous.
Now, many pushed back on that clip when it initially came out, saying that maybe slavery or the genocidal tendencies of America's forefounders were worse than Donald Trump necessarily, but you get the idea. And those words, like many of U2's lyrics, have come to be relatively prophetic. Here is just one piece of the interview where Bono reflects on his experiences meeting Pope Francis.
Pope Francis, I met him a few times. I've spent some time in his company, had very interesting conversations.
What did you guys talk about?
Have you not heard of the seal, of the confessional? I cannot tell you of what I've confessed. He's been patient enough to hear my confession, not in the religious sense, but he's curious, about musicians. He's curious about how the world works. And he's deep passion for the fragility of the human, particularly the poorest and most vulnerable people on the planet. It's a real thing for him.
Right, and naturally, as an Irish Catholic, that would mean a lot to Bono. But then the conversation shifted towards Donald Trump's budget cuts to foreign aid relief, which Bono is very angry at. Take a listen to some of this. Bono told Esquire that the most unbelievable carnage imaginable is happening to our work. These are the brightest, best people who've given their lives trying to serve the poorest, most vulnerable communities, and they've just been thrown in the dumpster. Despite his current criticism of Trump and the Republican Party, historically, he hasn't been afraid to work with whoever will advance his causes. For instance, he controversially worked with George W. Bush to pass the president's emergency plan for AIDS relief program, even against criticism from the left. But according to a recent report, the program states that it is responsible for saving over 26 million lives since its creation. So I guess in some instances, Republicans actually are pro-life. But then Trump recently moved to halt that program, triggering outcry. Bono goes on in the interview saying, "I describe myself as a radical centrist, and I'm sure that sounds absurd, but I am also sure that is how we get through the future. What's being served up on the far left and on the far right is not where we need to be." And while I disagree with the comparison of the left and the right, it's pretty clear that the fear of the fringes is what keeps us up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. Bono clearly taking specific aim at Trump's effort to shut down the U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID, and how that's resulted in the suspension of critical programs around the world that benefit the U.S. in hundreds of ways, from giving early warning of pandemics to building up support for American values abroad. Now, I've seen a lot of conflicting opinions about Bono and his words, as well as the programs that he runs. So I'd love to know yours in the comments down below, but where I'll leave this is the end of the actual Esquire interview that reads as such. I can understand people coming to a place where they say, I don't see why the United States has to pay for aid, drugs, or anything else in places far away where there is no vote, Bono admits, but he believes that such thinking, quote, makes a lot of geopolitical troubles for you down the road. saying the delight that was taken in the destruction of life support systems, pulling them out of the wall, that's the clue to the true nature of this, Bono continues. Evil walks amongst us, but it is rarely this obvious. Still, Bono remains hopeful that America will turn the ship around, saying, I believe the old adage that if you give Americans the facts, that they will make the right choice. Problem is getting them the facts, especially right now. And while I'm slowly getting sucked dry of the optimism that Bono has, as an Irishman, I do think it is more important than ever to get MAGA morons the facts about these things. Because you and I live in a factual reality. This channel operates in a factual reality. But unfortunately, some 70 plus million Americans do not. And look, I'd love to hear all your thoughts and comments down below about what you think about what Bono said and how he came out against Trump and if that's going to make any difference. But I do think some of the bigger conversation here should be had around what Bono doesn't say here, which is how to combat the irrational, non-fact-based reality that so many Americans are living in. And if you come up with that in the comments, well, hell, sign yourself up for a Nobel Peace Prize. Thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to drop a like and subscribe. For Really American, I'm Kenny Hesse. I'll see you all in the next one.
I'm sure you're aware our president gave you a little shout out. How much did Kamala Harris pay Bruce Springsteen for his poor performance during her campaign for president? Why did he accept that money if he's such a fan of hers? Isn't that a major and illegal campaign contribution? What about Beyonce? And how much went to Oprah and Bono?
I don't want to cut in on your action.
No,
because I know the president at 1 a.m. or 1:30 or whatever that was is usually thinking about you.
Sometimes.
But two points I'll make. One, to be in the company of Bruce Springsteen, Beyonce, and Oprah. I'd play tambourine in that band. And two, U2 and I have we've never paid or played a show to support any candidate from any parts.
That never happened.
It has never happened, and it's called Truth Social. It seems to be pretty antisocial. It's not very true a lot of the time. So,
it's
but
ironically titled.
But a clue to being in such esteemed company might be the fact that I co-founded the One campaign, which is by design bipartisan. And we've got a lot of very religious Catholics, evangelicals, conservatives, who are very, very, very angry with the person that they voted into office, having demolished instruments of mercy and compassion like USAID or PEPFAR, which had saved 26 million lives of people who had AIDS around the world. That's the America that we love. That's the America that we all want to be part of, and they are not happy, and there will be trouble.